welcome back to my channel. If you're new, I'm Rai and this is Rai's Reading Corner, and today I am bringing you my most disappointing reads of 2020.
About you, feel so special, prettier from the minute that I met you.
So I read a lot of great books in 2020. I will I'll put in the cards my top books of 2020. I read over 103 books, which I'm super proud of myself for. But of course, out of those 103, I'm not gonna like or enjoy every single book that I had read. So there are definitely some books that were some big disappointments and misses for me. I do want to preface that these are completely my opinions, and I know that some of these books are probably maybe your favorites, but it's nothing against the book itself. It just wasn't something that interests me or I liked, but it doesn't mean that they're not good books and that you should never read them. These are just based solely on my opinion. So I have 7 books that just kind of missed the mark for me. These are all I rated either under 3 stars, so like a 2.75 and below. I did not include my DNF books in here. There were a couple I did DNF this year. I wanted to just include the books that I actually read from front to back so I could really give you my true opinions on these books. So let's get started. Book number 1 that was a big disappointment, and these are in no particular order, they're just 7 books that I didn't care for, is People Like Us by Dana Meal. This is a YA novel about a group of girls at like a boarding type school, and there is a murder at the school and they are trying to figure it out what or who committed the murder, and the girls get like these mysterious messages kind of calling out some of their things that they've done in the past that is not so great. It was really revenant of like Pretty Little Liars, and I've read the Pretty Little Liars series and I enjoyed that more than I enjoyed this by far. I think I gave this 2.75 stars. I did not like the girl on girl hate towards each other. I feel like being a female, you get a lot of things sometimes working against you in general, and I feel like females need to bond together and not tear each other down, and this book was all about tearing each other down, and I just don't enjoy reading that for myself. I just don't like it. It's not something I enjoy reading in a story. I also did not care for the twist. It was so predictable. I knew it from the very beginning of who the murderer was going to be. It just didn't do it for me. It was a quick read, even though seemed like it's a longer book. I read it super quickly. It just wasn't what I needed. I've read a lot of other YA mystery thriller type novels, and this one for me just didn't compare to some of the other ones, like A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, One of Us is Lying, things like that. The next book that was a big disappointment or a miss for me this year was The Escape Room by Maren Stoffels. It's about a group of friends that go to like an escape room. I'm sure you guys have maybe seen or heard about them before. And the person that's like controlling the escape room pretty much like locks them in there and is trying to kill them. The concept I think is kind of cool because if you really think about it, like when you're in an escape room, you're really locked in there and you're at the will of the person that is like monitoring the room. So I think the concept is kind of cool and could have potential, but this book was just super flat for me. It just didn't do anything for me. It was super predictable. I don't even know what to say about it because it was so blah and it was short. It was like not even 200 pages, and it just wasn't, the characters weren't developed. I feel like they tried to like put all of this rep in the book, and it was just like overload, and it just like didn't make sense for some of it, and I just feel like they just tried to push everything into 193 pages and it just didn't really work out or pan out for me. Really predictable, but I think the concept could be cool, and I would be willing to read another book about something that maybe a similar concept, but this one just didn't do this for me. I think I give it like 1.75 stars. It was a pretty low read for me. All right, my next one was one that I really had high hopes for. I read it for the Disney Channel Games Readathon, and this was Dash and Lily's Book of Dares. I gave this 2.75 stars. When I went into this, I was hoping for a sweet, holiday, fun, little YA, contemporary, maybe romance story, but that's not really what I got. We have our main characters, Dash and Lily. Dash finds a notebook in a bookstore, and there's like these dares that Lily has wrote in there, and she's kind of was hoping that maybe she would find someone who was compatible with her, because there were a lot of references to like books and things like that and different things to do. The beginning for me started off really well. I liked the whole concept of it. But it got really kind of sad for me because it's Christmas time and Dash literally told his dad that he was staying with his mom, and his mom said he was staying with his dad for the holidays, and none of the parents like checked it out, and he spent Christmas on his own, and he would rather spend Christmas on his own than spend it with his family, which is just so disheartening to me. And then Lily, she her parents decided to go on a trip across the world, and she's left with her like 20-year-old brother who is, you know, doing his own thing with his boyfriend. And again, pretty much she's celebrating Christmas like on her own. And it just was really sad. Like, just wasn't the feels that I wanted to get. I felt that the book from like the second half on was really slow and uneventful, where the beginning of the book I enjoyed. I heard the Netflix show is really well done, so I'm really interested in maybe watching that at some point. But this was a disappointment. I went in hoping for some good, sweet holiday young romance feels, and that's just not what I got. So I think I only give it 2.75 stars. So that's kind of why it's landed one of my most disappointing reads of 2020. So my next disappointing read is actually one that I talked about on my mid-year reflection of books that I wasn't feeling in the middle of the year, and I'll post that video up in the cards. And this is The Mist by Stephen King. So I have not read a ton of Stephen King. I want to say this is my second or my third one. This is about a town in Maine who had like a typical summer thunderstorm, but aftermath of it, there's this mist that's pretty much just like killing people and wreaking havoc in their town. And we have a family, and pretty much the main characters are the dad and the son. Concept I think is cool. It's weird, and I'm expecting a weird concept when I was reading Stephen King, so that definitely was not the problem for me. But the father makes a choice in the middle of the book when they're trying to hide and not die and trying to protect his son at a grocery store, when he does not know what his wife is alive or dead, does something that literally ruined this entire book for me and made me so angry. And I don't understand why the father needed to do that, because it didn't move the plot in any which way. And I get maybe it was made so that you did not like the father character, but I just don't feel like it was needed in the book, and I just don't understand. So if you've read The Mist, you probably know what I'm talking about. It happens at the grocery store at nighttime. I'm not gonna say it because I don't want to spoil it for people that still want to read The Mist, but I just think it was really tasteless, and it literally ruined this entire book for me, and I wrote it off right after that. I feel like being a parent myself, like, it just angered me to like no end. So I want to say I gave this maybe like a 1.75 or 2. I don't remember. It was going to be a 3-star read as I was reading it, but as soon as that happened, it like legit destroyed this book for me. So that's why it's on this list, and that's why it was on my mid-year, and that's why it never got removed. All right, so my next disappointing read was another book that I read for the Disney Channel Games Readathon. Some of my reading just did not go well for the readathon, and that was Let It Snow, and this is by John Green, Maureen Johnson, and Lauren Miracle. I'm probably saying it wrong, and I apologize. These are 3 different stories, each written by a different author, and they are kind of, all the stories are intertwined and they all come together at the end, but the first 2 are completely different stories. The third one has different characters as well, but at the end they kind of all come together. It's about a snowstorm that's going on in this town, and some like teenagers, they're trying to, they end up falling in love with someone else in each one of these stories. So first was Maureen Johnson's story, and this one was called The Jubilee Express. This one was my favorite out of the 3. It wasn't great by any means. I did not like the stereotypical type of descriptions of what these cheerleaders were. It really kind of rubbed me off the wrong way. I just did not think it was necessary. Again, that girl on girl hate, it's just not something I enjoy reading in a book. The next one was called A Cheer-tastic Christmas Miracle, and it was by John Green. This is why this book is on my most disappointing reads, because it was so offensive towards women, towards the LGBTQIA community, like using words as like jokes and slang, and it was so degrading of women that I literally couldn't believe what I was reading, and that this is something that young adults are maybe picking up to read. It was so offensive that I could not believe that this is something that I was reading, and I found it offensive, and it was awful. And Lauren Miracle's story there was nothing crazy about it. It just was really boring and really kind of blah. So for me, what really brought this down to one of the most disappointing reads was definitely John Green's part. I hated everything about it. everything I hate about it. I did watch the Netflix movie. It's literally not even the same thing. So if you're like, wait, I don't want to watch the Netflix version of this now, still watch it because it's like it's not even the same exact thing. But yeah, this was a rough read for me. But if you're a huge John Green fan, then I would definitely pick this up because I've come to the sense that I just don't care for John Green's writing style. I've read several books by him, but I know some people love him, and that's, like I said, totally okay. For me, he's not the author for me. All right, the next one, which I know this one is some people's like favorites of the year book, but it just did not do it for me. And it is Wilder Girls by Rory Powers. I read this towards the beginning of the year, kind of right when the pandemic started. And this actually is kind of about a pandemic, about a group of girls, and they are in quarantine. They were at a school because of this like disease that's going around, and it gives them like different like growth things like a tail or extra hearts. It's kind of some body horror, gruesome type things. And it's just them trying to survive and then like trying to also get off this island and not have to be, because there's no food, things like that. It's kind of like a Lord of the Flies inspired story. So concept, I liked this concept of a pandemic and, you know, the teachers dying out and the kids having to like kind of survive on their own. So that for me was good. I just didn't care for the writing style in here. It's told literally from a one character's perspective for the entire book, and then for 2 chapters another character's, and then we never get that other character's perspective again. And for me, I just didn't care for that. I would have rather had it alternating throughout the entire book, or just have the one character's perspective throughout the entire book. The ending to me was just terrible, and I've heard people who did enjoy most of this book did not like the ending of this book either. So I know that I was like at least I wasn't totally off by this, but it just didn't do it for me, and I was really sad. I really wanted to like this book. However, I'm not writing Rory Powers off because this is the only book I've ever read by her. This was her debut novel. So I do have her second book. I just haven't picked it up yet, but it is something I would like to read in 2021 to give Rory Powers another chance, because I think she could have potential, because I do enjoy her concepts. I just did not like her execution of the story. All right, so my last one, as my books are spilling all over, is probably gonna be the most controversial one. And I know always posting these videos could be controversial, but again, strictly my opinion. I feel like people either really, really liked this book. It was on Goodreads top picks for the thriller category, but I do know some people that just did not like this book. And this is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. So this book, I went in with high hopes. I love thriller books. If you can check out my top books of the year, my top 2 spots were thriller horror type novels. This one just did not do it for me at all. It's about a group of friends that have known each other for a long time, are coming to a wedding on this island in Ireland, or off the coast of Ireland, for the marriage. And right off the first bat, you know that there's a dead body, and you just don't know who has killed that person until like pretty much the very end. For me, the problems with the story was I just found out that I really don't think I like knowing that there's a dead body right off the bat. I like the suspense of throughout the novel, and then maybe finding out something happened to someone maybe midway through the novel. So for me, that's just something that's personally for me. I don't mind a multiple perspective story. I read a lot of those, but for me, this just jumped around so much. I know that none of the characters are supposed to be likable, but I feel like always in a thriller, I want one character that I can root for and hope good things for. And there were none of the characters in here that I enjoyed or liked. And I think it was just too wrapped up perfect. Like, for this to happen, literally everything had to be aligned in like perfect ways. And it just was too tidy for me. And I don't like a tidy thriller novel. I like it to be messy. So it just didn't do it for me. I think I gave this 2 stars. I get why people would like it, especially if you like now, you know, knowing that a murder happened right at the beginning and you're trying to find the clues throughout the book to see who killed them. But I just have found out that I just personally just don't care for that. So this did make my most disappointing reads of 2020. So these were 7 books that just didn't do it for me for 2020. But again, maybe they did for you, and I totally understand. Have you read any of these books off this list? What did you think? And also, what was your most disappointing read of 2020? So if you want to take this journey with me, please press that subscribe button. If you liked this video, give me a thumbs up. And if you never want to miss any of my content again, make sure you press that notification button. If you want to be my friend on any other social media platforms, all that information is down below. And yeah, so stay kind, loves, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
About you, feel so special.